All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. I know typically, for me, at least this time of year, I get to spend a little bit of time at physical NAMM. You get to be actually in California there in the nice warm weather. I'm up here in Minneapolis, and I'm enjoying the snow currently. But at least I get to do it from the comfort of my own apartment. But thanks for joining us here today. You know, certainly this is a great alternative that's available, and I'm glad that you guys were able to join us here. You know, I think a lot of us, you know, kind of miss obviously the physical interaction of NAMM. It's a very exciting show, but thanks for joining our virtual Believe in Music Week here. Really excited that NAMM has offered this, and it seems like it's going pretty well so far, and I think we've gotten great attendance, you know, so far in some of the other sessions. But anyways, my name is Rob Ferguson. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the marketing manager here for North America, specifically for our professional systems portfolio, which includes the Dynacord brand, as well as our sister Electro-Voice brand, so focusing on installed and touring sound primarily. So today, obviously, we'll be focusing on Dynacord. For those of you who aren't familiar with the brand here in North America, it's been a brand for well over 70 years. You know, certainly kind of based out of our Straubing headquarters there in Germany. For those of you who aren't familiar with Dynacord, but certainly I think in the past 10 years, if you're in North America, you probably are familiar with Electro-Voice, our loudspeaker brand, and previously a lot of our electronics were Electro-Voice branded. So now they are Dynacord branded going forward. So any new products we introduce to the market will be Dynacord branded. So just keep that in mind if you're familiar with some of the legacy amplifiers or electronics that were previously EV branded here in North America. They will be Dynacord branded going forward. And certainly we've launched amplifiers over the past couple of years. And now we've actually launched a new product series called MXE. So for those of you who aren't familiar, we launched this, I think, back in June initially. So it's been in the market a little bit already. So it's under a year still. So certainly, you know, we're trying to get the word out a little bit more about it. But we've already got some great success with it. And it's in a couple of really cool installations across the country. So, but anyways, so MXE will be a full series of products, and the first one we're launching is MXE5, which you see pictured here. And it's certainly a DSP. It's more than just a DSP unit. It's also a system manager. So before I dive into the actual product, I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about where we really sit in the market. You know, certainly there's a lot of other DSP systems out there in the market, and you know, I think we took a little bit of a different approach. At least we feel we have compared to what we see out there in the market. So a lot of major brands out there that you maybe are familiar with aren't necessarily focused on performance audio. And that's a really different approach for us. I think most major brands have focused on some corporate markets or some commercial type markets. So whether it's video conferencing or we're just powering some ceiling speakers or commercial audio, you know, certainly we don't need the best in class components for a lot of those applications. Certainly, I think we all strive to have the best audio we can, but for a lot of those types of applications, that isn't necessarily the requirement. So we've chosen to focus on performance spaces and professional audio quality, and certainly this product can be used in some commercial applications as well. However, we really focused on getting the best-in-class components. And what we've noticed with a lot of other manufacturers that are even popular, you know, we found that, you know, they're using a DSP that was maybe designed for more of a corporate market rather than for performance audio. So certainly, if you're looking for you know, something like the MXE series, just something to keep in mind. That's really where we stand out is performance audio, because we've actually taken the time to get the best-in-class components. A lot of manufacturers, you know, that are popular don't even publish some of their audio specifications. So we found that when we were really looking at enhancing this product. So obviously, I think you guys are probably familiar with what performance applications we're talking about. We're talking about live production. It could be bars and clubs, could be performing arts, houses of worship, also a very key vertical for us. And then, of course, sports venues. And there are several other applications out there where certainly we care about the audio quality and what the end user hears at the end of the day. So it's something that I think we've really focused on here. So that's definitely a key takeaway from the session here today. So let's talk a little bit about the specifications. I've talked about how, how the product's a little bit different than what's out there in the market. And something to keep in mind is obviously it's not just a DSP per se, it is a audio system manager with integrated matrix mixing, signal processing, network routing, and of course system control and supervision. So really the system head is what we're looking at here. So with the MXE5, we're looking at a 24 by 24 matrix size, and keep in mind, MXE5 is the first of the series, so it'll be kind of in the middle in terms of size here. So it's a 24 by 24 matrix size. So for Dante in and out, certainly we're trying to play friendly with current standards, and Dante is the current standard we're using today. So that's a 24 by 24 matrix size there for Dante. As far as analog IOs or analog inputs and outputs, we've got 12 mic line inputs, and then we've got 8 line outputs. And then for control ports, we've got 8 GPIOs, certainly fully configurable depending on what you need for your specific application. And then, of course, we do have some network connections here. So we've got a total of 3. We've got 2 Dante and OCA primary and secondary. So it's Dante audio and then AES-70 control, or OCA, for those of you who are familiar with that. Certainly trying to stay open and friendly with what's out there in the market. And then 1 dedicated OCA control port where you could hook up another control device. And I'll talk a little bit about an accessory here in a little bit where you might be using that. And of course, we've got some safety and redundancy built in here. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have the audio quality specifications, which I've talked about a little bit already. Some great SNR, signal-to-noise ratio, 118 dB. I think we're far exceeding what's out there at the market at this price point. THD, also great, excellent. Sampling rate, we have the option to run at full 96 or 48K. And if you are doing loudspeaker processing at the MXE rather than at the amplifier, you are limited to 48K. So just keep that in mind, at least today. If you are planning on doing loudspeaker processing, it is 48K, which is suitable for plenty of applications, but something to keep in mind if you're looking to achieve full 96, you might want to get into one of the IPX or TGX amplifiers if you're going to use Dynacord. Some great latency here as well. So analog in to analog out at 96K, we're looking at 0.22 milliseconds and then 0.45 milliseconds at 48K. So overall, we've got some great signal processing here, and it's definitely where we stand out, I think, in the market. So let's talk a little bit about the features of the MXE5. So certainly we wanted to make this flexible enough for install and live applications. So I'll talk a little bit about an accessory that makes a little bit more sense for live applications, but for install applications, obviously we wanted Euroblock connectors for installation purposes. And certainly, like I mentioned, we've got some Dante and OCA primary and secondary ports, as well as a dedicated OCA control port. And then we've got the ability to operate in both glitch-free, transparent, and RSTP modes. And then we do have a separate network control port with multicast filtering, ideal for Wi-Fi control. And then we've got 8 selectable GPIOs, right? So analog, logic input, logic output. So we've got a couple choices there, freely configurable. We've got a 10-volt supervised short circuit protected output, 48-volt phantom power. And then, of course, this does operate as your system manager and OCA controller. We also do have a plugin available as well for QSYS. On the right-hand side, you'll see some of the many features that are built into the matrix engine. Cross-point matrix, stereo zone mixer, polarity inversion, PEQ, low shelf, high shelf, low pass filter, high pass filter, notch, delays, ducker, compressor with side chains, noise gate with side chains, FIR drive controller, crossovers, gain controls, peak limiter, RMS temp limiters, got everything that we think makes sense for performance applications. And then we do even have some compatibility with some third-party loudspeakers. So there is now a third-party loudspeaker setting library available within SONICUE. So if you're not using an Electro Voice loudspeaker, which I think many people do that use Dynacord, but we do have some third-party loudspeaker settings now available. So you're free to choose a different loudspeaker manufacturer if you want to. Certainly makes sense to use EV, but if you want to use something else or it's a retrofit, you can certainly use any of the Dynacord electronics to drive those. So those are all of the features that are out of the gate available with our sound system software, SONICUE 1.2. So just keep in mind, as we enhance SONICUE, once we get to SONICUE 1.3, we will have more choices, which you see here down below in blue. And it might make sense for maybe some even commercial applications where maybe you would like to use a product like MXE. So down the road, you will have the choice of a fixed or open architecture. Today, it's a semi-fixed architecture. It will be fully open down the road here. We'll also be adding a virtual professional mixer with multi-effects, task engines, auto mixing, advanced room combining, AEC, AGC, ambient noise control, you know, and a lower cost network wall panel solution. And another thing that is available actually today is Crestron control integration, which is listed in blue. We fully implemented that already, so that we can take that off the list there in blue. But just keep that in mind. We will be continuing to add to the feature set with MXE. Certainly, we're focused on performance audio, but if you do need stuff like AEC for your application, we will be adding features like that down the road. So moving on to some accessories here that are available today with MXE5. The first one I'm going to talk about is the TPC1, or the touch panel controller. It's a 5.7-inch touch panel. It's full HD, bright display, nice and sleek, very easy to install, and it does have a universal fit. So, you know, certainly for most of us in the U.S. here, obviously it'll fit right into a U.S. wall box, but we also do have, this will also fit in EU and UK wall boxes. So if you're doing maybe some international stuff, or maybe you're not based here in the US, just keep in mind we do offer a universal fit here for the TPC1 for installation. The TPC1 does operate on PoE or auxiliary power, depending on how you want to run it. Like I mentioned, is very slim and elegant, and it is today freely configurable within SONICUE. And something else that we've noticed with some other manufacturers out there is that they don't always offer theft-resistant locking. So it's not something you have to worry about here. Certainly this thing looks like a small cell phone, and depending on the application, certainly you don't want that thing coming out of the wall. So there is some theft-resistant locking there, so you don't have to worry about that. And then for us, for those of us who are focusing more on live applications, here's the professional connector panel, which will be shipping shortly. The MXE5 and the TPC1 are already shipping here within North America. This is the next accessory that will be shipping here shortly. It's a 12x12 XLR analog input and output. We've got two AES3 XLR connectors for 4 channels of input and output, dual Dante and OCA primary and secondary ports, as you can imagine, and then dedicated control port or aux network port. So just keep in mind that this accessory is available if you need to do patching or if you're focused more on a live application. So it'll also be compatible with the future MXE series releases down the road. And then, of course, certainly the hardware matters a lot. We've got some great best-in-class components in with MXE5, but probably the next most important thing is the user interface. So to program or configure and operate the MXE5, we're using SONICUE. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's our newest sound system software that we're using for all of our electronics, including MXE. And it provides for those who aren't familiar, it provides kind of a guided workflow with dedicated, consistent user interaction. So we can offer the maximum flexibility with minimum effort. So it does kind of move left to right with 3 main menus and then relevant submenus. And there's some integrated system visibility, direct access on the fly, and error prevention checks as you go through and configure your system. It's a very easy to use software. We have some great online trainings available if you want to learn more about it. It's actually very intuitive, and it makes a lot of sense to me, certainly. I really didn't even spend a lot of time taking the trainings when we first launched the software. So let's talk a little bit about configuring this within SONICUE. So with our channel strip here, right, we'll first want to start here with our input here. So you can set your input gain. You can set pilot detection if you want to, as you walk through some of these DSP blocks. Next, we'll have our input patch here, which you can set here, right? So we have up to 12 analog and 24 Dante channels for inputs here, so we can do that pretty easily. Certainly we can actually set these all to be diagonal pretty easily, and then of course we have direct access to Dante controller as well. So pretty easy to do your input patching. And then we'll move on to some of the other DSP blocks here, your trim, your input delay, your high pass, low pass, noise gate, input filter, compressor, ducker. You got a lot of options there within that portion of the channel strip. And then we'll move over into the zone mixer. So the zone mixer patch configuration, we can select channels previously set up from the input patch configuration. It's pretty simple and easy to use the zone mixer here. And then of course we can select zone outputs and speaker configuration and processing right here as well if you're doing speaker processing here at the MXE. And here's what the zone mixer looks like. Multiple zones can be easily controlled. We can select what zones to be controlled, and then the arrows for macro and micro adjustments. So we have the choice to do small or bigger adjustments there as well, and of course stereo pan control and mute. So that's kind of how it looks within SONICUE. Obviously, there's a lot more we could dive into there. I highly encourage you to check out. We do have a dedicated SONICUE landing page on the Dynacord website if you're curious about learning more about it. And certainly feel free to download it and play with it yourself. I find that the software is very intuitive. So in terms of applications, we kind of already talked about the fact that we're focusing on performance audio. So some key verticals for us is house of worship, sports, performing arts and event venues, and then of course live applications as well. Hopefully we'll see more of that here in the near future. But certainly these are the kind of the focus applications we're focusing on with the product here. So to kind of give you a better interpretation of what a system might look like, I got a couple system examples here that we can walk through. The first one here could be maybe a mid-size house of worship, a convention center. There's quite a few options here, but it's a pretty simple system here. We've got a seated area, an event hall, some public areas as well, and we're powering these with some C-series amplifiers. We're using the MXE5 as the audio matrix and input mixer for multiple zones. The C-series amplifiers, which we have here, are doing the actual loudspeaker processing. Right, we've got some great DSP already packed into the C-series amplifiers, if you guys are familiar with those. But we can actually obviously configure this all within SONICUE together. So it makes sense to use some Dynacord amplifiers in this application as well. And we can do some remote turn time on, or remote turn on via GPIOs. We've got our TPC1 here for user control, for zone level control, and maybe preset recall. And then we could use a wireless PC or tablet can be added for advanced mixing and control in some of these zone areas. So pretty simple setup there. So let's move into maybe another space here. So maybe we're looking more at a performing arts or house of worship example. In this example, we're going to be using, obviously, the MXE5 as the audio matrix and system manager, which makes sense. In this example, we have IPX amplifiers, which you can see here for the main area, whether that's the auditorium or main lobby area. We've got our delays and fills, and then external zones for those different areas. We're using IPX amplifiers because we really want to operate this system at full 96K, and IPX can do that. And then, of course, these are networked amplifiers, which makes everything nice and simple for integration. But yeah, so that's this example. And then we can also, MXE5 could also be used to send submixes from the console so that musicians can create or control their own monitors via the TPC1. Maybe a sports example is another good example. Certainly we've had a lot of success already with MXE in the sports arena. Up here in the top, we have kind of our back of house area here. So we've got an MXE5 here doing speaker processing because we've elected to use some non-DSP amps. So like the Electro Voice CPS amplifiers, if you're familiar with those, or the Dynacord DSA amplifiers if you're outside of North America and Dynacord's available. So in the back of house areas, we're primarily using high impedance loudspeakers, right, 70 volts. So doing the loudspeaker processing at the MXE5 is totally fine, right? Because at 48K, that's more than enough for some of these commercial areas. So we've got that, and then we've got some zone controls with the TPC1. So we can do that pretty easily. We've got our control room as well, right? We've got local inputs connected via the CP MXE panel. So that's the professional connector panel there that I was just talking about that'll be shipping soon. We've got a PC here for the event operator, and then or the TPC1, let's say you're the facility manager, and then the main bowl system is certainly the MXE as the audio matrix and system manager, and then of course IPX amplifiers here for the main bowl. Certainly that makes sense from a power perspective, but also they're fully networkable 96 kilohertz amplifiers. Got a live production example here. Certainly we're hoping this comes back a little bit sooner rather than later, but for front of house consoles, the inputs are connected here via the CP-MXE panel. And then the MXE5 is used as collecting the consoles, mixing and switching, system-wide manager and controller, the local mixer for the host act, right? So during the console switch, and then system-wide 96K. And then the TPC1 can be used as a remote system controller, and it can still switch consoles and mix inputs from the surface. And then of course you can recall presets and be the stage end system controller. And then maybe for a larger example here, right? We talked about the sports example, but here's a larger system where we're using 3 MXEs. We can, we've got our submixes, got our central matrix, right? So we've got a couple different options here. We've got some third-party wall plates that can be added for local inputs and outputs. So if you want to use something a little more basic than the touch panel controllers, we've got some RDL devices in here. So feel free to use those. So third-party volume controls as well. So, and then the TPC1 is controlling multiple MXE devices on the same network. So as far as system inputs, we've got 48 inputs in analog, and then a pretty high number of zones here, so ranging from 24 to 72 zones. So it is very possible to expand. Just because it is a 24 by 24 matrix mixer doesn't mean that we can't step into a larger system with a lot more routing here. So we can use multiple MXEs within the same system. So keep that in mind. So overall, just to recap MXE here, the MXE series, we're definitely focused on higher audio quality. So full 96 kilohertz processing power. We've got the industry's lowest audio latency and outstanding SNR and THD specifications. We've got some advanced mixing available already with SONICUE 1.2, and then we've got an innovative zone mixer available. And when we continue to add to SONICUE in terms of the feature set, we'll have a virtual mixer with multi-effects processing available down the road. The MXE series is the complete package solution, so there's no need to add cards. Dante and OCA are already on board, so no additional costs, or dealing with that is kind of a point of failure, which I think that's what happens with a lot of those chassis type systems. And then of course, integration to the entire SONICUE system-wide control, which is very powerful. And then certainly can be used for a wide variety of applications. So whether we're doing some live performance, house of worship, stadiums, but of course we could use it for a lot of commercial applications, whether we're using 70-volt loudspeakers, just need to put a couple boxes in the air. It'll definitely work for that as well. So a wide variety of applications. Definitely we're focusing on performance audio, and certainly being an audiophile, I care about that, and I'm sure you do as well. So other things to keep in mind, like I mentioned earlier, we will have more releases. We'll have more MXE units available within the series. So MXE5 will be the first to come out. The full freely configuration architecture will be available in SONICUE when we get to 1.3. Right now we're at 1.2. We'll also have a task engine, a professional virtual mixer with multi-effects, auto mixing, AEC, ANC, automatic gain control. The Creston control integration is already available, so just so you know. So we're just on the cusp of launching that here shortly within the month. We'll have app control for Android and iOS down the road, and then remote access gateway solution. Then, of course, we'll have another accessory for a low-cost networked wall panel. So, and then MXE10, it will also be a product that we're going to launch down the road. So that'll be the bigger brother. It'll be 128 by 128 channels. And of course, we'll have a smaller guy later on too. So just keep that in mind. We'll continue to add to the MXE series. We came out with MXE5 kind of right in the middle. Kind of makes sense for most applications. But certainly we'll continue to add to the feature set and continue to improve the MXE series down the road. In terms of pricing, and this is full MSRP, just keep that in mind. So the MXE5 DSP Matrix Mix Engine is going to retail at $31.90. The touch panel controller, TPC1, will be $10.90. And then the CP-MXE, which is the professional connector panel, which I just talked about, will be $12.90. And we'll be shipping here within the next month or so. The MXE5 and TPC1 are fully ready, have been shipping, and have been in quite a lot of applications already. So I know a lot of my colleagues have probably been answering a lot of the questions that you have within the chat. So if you do have further questions, or if we missed your question for some reason, feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, my name's Rob Ferguson. I'm the marketing manager here for North America. If you got questions, feel free to email me. My email is my first dot my last name. So it's Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, .Ferguson, Ferguson, the number 2, at us.bosch, bosch.com. So feel free to send me an email if you got questions. And even if you want to talk, I'll, after you send me an email, I'll be sure to return your call, answer any questions you might have on the MXE series or any other questions you might have about the Dynacord portfolio, whether that's amplifiers, electronics, or some of the Electro Voice install and live loudspeakers. So feel free to reach out if you got any questions. So with that, I think we're right here at the end of the half hour. So I definitely really appreciate you all joining here today. I know we all wish we could all be together here at NAMM, but this is a great alternative. I'm looking forward to joining some of the other sessions that are coming forward this week. It's a very busy week, a lot of great, exciting things to talk about. So feel free to join some of the other sessions. So certainly our sibling brand Electro Voice, they're still doing quite a few sessions here coming up. So feel free to join those. Go to the Electro Voice page. Feel free to sign up for those. Got some great content there. I hope that you do check it out. I personally will be attending quite a few of those, as well as some other stuff that's out there. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Again, my name is Rob Ferguson, and thanks for joining me to talk about MXE. Have a great day.